Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep, loud and clear.
Yes.
So now I should be back on, and I think, okay, so they can hear, all right, good. All right, it's working, hooray! Yeah, OBS is an amazing program. It's free, it does so many neat things, and it also always loses my audio settings, even if I test beforehand. So, hello, welcome. This is exciting. This is the Spain show. So we have a repeat guest on, Javier. You've been on a few times. We also have our friends from Plain Concepts. And so can you just quickly say hi?
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
So, yeah, so we have Unai and Luis, and you will be showing something really cool really soon with Esquio feature toggles. But I'll start with the community links, and then I'll turn the floor over to you after that. So here we go.
Cool.
All right. I'm starting by showing the list first. Normally, I show this at the very end, but if anyone wants to grab this URL, so it's the URL is to ASP.NET Standup 2020-0512. Jump right in. So first of all, Damian Bowden walking through configuring a domain for an Azure App Service using Cloudflare. So there's different services. You can do all of your DNS and everything using Azure. If you want to integrate with Cloudflare, he shows how to do that. There's requirements for text A and C name records. So he shows configuring that using Cloudflare, setting up custom domain. But I think the interesting part in this is he also shows towards the end of the post how to automate it. So this is using the Azure CLI. And he shows also that you can automate adding your PFSX certificate as well. So, and then as always, Damian wraps up his post with a lot of nice links at the end. So another great post from Damian. This is a neat one. Scott Hanselman sent this over to me last night. This is from Ignat, and he's showing how to use .NET Core 2 APIs with Blockly. So Blockly is a neat visual programming interface, and the idea here is to call your APIs using this kind of visual interface. So here, as an example, when I click execute, then this goes and hits that. So equivalent to using something like Postman or, you know, the what's the Swagger, you know, like Swashbuckle or other Swagger things. This is a visual thing. And this Blockly system is also popular in things like, you know, learning to code, beginning coding things. So and there's also a 6-minute video that I watched through, and it's, you know, pretty straightforward. Pretty neat how that you can go through and configure, including just a use Blockly UI, and it sets that up for you. So yeah, very nice. All right, Syed, or excuse me, Shahed, continuing his series. He's up to S for SignalR, and so he walks through SignalR with .NET Core 3.1. So he did a poll to see what people were interested in, and interestingly enough, the result of the poll, the people that voted in the poll like polls, so they wanted a poll voting app, so he created that. So he showed this this thing using that. Pretty straightforward. I think SignalR has continued to you know, get simpler and easier to use. So he shows setting up the server and client side dependencies. He's pulling them in using libman, and I'm a fan of libman. So that's pretty cool. And he shows the basic setup. Now, what he's using, use jQuery, but that's not required anymore. You can use SignalR without jQuery now. And so he kind of walks through a little bit of that, and then kind of finishes up talking about Azure SignalR service and packaging changes for 3.1. All right, 2 from Andrew Locke this week. Here he's talking about number 1, using jQuery and Bootstrap from CDN using fallback scripts. So the previous templates for ASP.NET Core had this built in with using CDN and fallback, and that is useful. However, it makes the default templates a little more complicated, and so in the current templates, they're no longer integrated, but you can still use that. So there's the ASP fallback attribute, and then there's some other support using environment tags. So he kind of walks through why you would do that, including that CDNs are globally distributed. You have the ability to, if you're using common libraries, then it's potential that it's already cached in the browser, etc. So he walks through updating to use, this is the current, it's all pulling from local. So he walks through how you would set that up, pulling from a CDN. So in this case, Cloudflare, or CDN.js, which is hosted by Cloudflare now. And he shows how you set up these ASP fallback tags. So the way this works is you give the reference, and then you say, you check for a class and what the setting for that class is. And if it's not found, then you know that you need to pull your local one. So that's all kind of built in using those ASP fallback scripts. So he goes through and sets that up, and he wraps up with showing how to test that as well. So testing using browser tools and showing if you're unable to hit the CDN, then pulling from the local as well. Good stuff. The second one I have from Andrew Locke this week is extending shutdown for an I-hosted service. So in the case where you have an I-hosted service that requires longer shutdown time, you can run into problems, especially too if you're waiting for one before another connects it or something. So he goes through and shows, fortunately, there is a setting, which is the shutdown timeout. So he shows setting the shutdown timeout, and relatively easy to do, and then kind of wraps up as Andrew always does with a nice summary at the end. Good to know that that's available. Speaking of extending limits, here's one on increasing ASP.NET file limits from Khalid Abu Hakma. So he talks about, in general, there are some sensible defaults that prevent, among other things, abuse from somebody trying to post a bunch of large files to your server and DDoS attacks and stuff. However, if there are cases where you do want to extend your limit, you can do that. So you don't want this 413 payload too large. So he goes through and explains there's an attribute you can set for an action. There's also generic middleware instructions that you can set, so you can set that directly in middleware. That's what I would kind of recommend, is doing at that level rather than globally doing it. However, if you do want to at a global level, you can also set that for Kestrel. And then if you are running under IIS, you also have some things you need to do there, because IIS is handling the input for you. And so there are some additional settings there for IIS configuration. All right. Here's one that I'll confess is over my head, but I've had people ask about it, and so I'm sharing it, and I'm interested in feedback, what people think. So this is a post on, or this is a repo showing event flow using CQRS ES architecture. So this brings together RabbitMQ, MongoDB, Postgres, and Event Store, and running under .NET Core 2.2. So he shows, here's this diagram, which is making my head spin, but I don't know. I guess there are cases where a lot of people are using this sort of architecture, and so and then he does show the configuration here as well. So I'm honestly sharing this, hoping that some people that are really into CQRS will let me know, yes, this is awesome, or no, I disagree, and we can all learn together. All right, Anthony Giretti, he's talking about why model binding is different with ASP.NET Core 3.1. So one of the things with ASP.NET Core 3.1 was moving from Newtonsoft JSON.NET using system text JSON. And in a lot of cases, people will just say, well, okay, if you want to make it work the way it used to, then bring back in Newtonsoft JSON. However, I really like this. He points out that if you do that, then you're losing the whole reason, that the system text JSON does have better performance. So there is now a JSON element option that you can use. And so he kind of talks about mapping over how JSON element works and shows a demo using that as well. I was happy to learn about that. I wasn't aware of the JSON element, and so I'll do that before I default to using Newtonsoft JSON.NET in the future. All right, and 3 more quick GitHub links here. One from Tim Hewer. He's showing some GitHub deploy actions for Blazor WASM. So he shows using Azure Storage, Azure App Service on Linux, Azure App Service on Linux with containers, and Azure App Service with Windows. So Tim's been doing a lot of these deployment examples using GitHub Actions, and it's nice to see this one using Blazor WASM. So if you are wanting to deploy Blazor WASM using GitHub Actions, I would start with this. All right, here's another. This is cool. This is showing Blazor PDF. So this is using the iText Sharp PDF library, which has been out for a while. And so I think that is a neat benefit of Blazor running with C# and NuGet packages, is that you can use those libraries that you're already familiar with and that are tried and tested. So this is showing several different kinds of options for generating PDF using Blazor. And my last one, speaking of the crazy neat stuff we can do with Blazor, this is using Babylon.js. And so a lot of cool things. I believe also there's been input from Michael, but also from, I think SQL Mr. Magoo is also working on this as well. So some good stuff from both of them on this. And again, this is over at the URL list. And I am ready to switch over and say hello again. So that was our community links. So you are going to be showing us Esquio, which is a feature toggle library.
Yep. Esquio is a feature library to use with .NET Core applications and solve the main problems that you have when trying to implement features, toggles in .NET Core apps. Okay?
Great.
When you try to start to create an application and use feature toggles, you need to solve some challenge. The first challenge is, if you create code like if some feature is enabled or not, else perform different actions, your code is have a lot of boilerplate code to check the conditions, and it's not easy to read the code. Okay. The second challenge is about how to create dynamically features that will be activated or not, depending on some factors like the browser of the users, the identity name of the user, the role, or some filters like that. And the last one is about how deploy your apps. Feature flags is also a delivery mechanism. This will be integrated with the pipelines in Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions or something like that. I think it will be better if I can show a demo. I can share my screen and show a demo.
Sure.
Well, this is the GitHub repo for Esquio, okay? When you download the Esquio, if in the build folder, if we have a compose, it's Docker compose demo with the UI, up this demo, and this create, our demo here is TTP in the port 1816, And this is a sample MVC application that we use to show Esquio features. This is an application to show different soccer matches. Soccer is like a real football, okay, for us. And well, in this application, you have a fake login. You can enter with any name like John and any password. And well, it's a fake login. And well, we have here an integration with Mini Profiler that show this application is using Esquio and also is trying to use the match score feature for default product and deployment tests. For us, deployment is like a tenant or environment where you deploy your applications. This is match score feature, buy tickets, and dark modes. In the same compose, you have the Esquio UI. The Esquio UI is a Blazor WASM application that you can use for configure your toggles and features. This is integrated.
A management UI, yeah.
Yeah, this is integrated with OpenID Connect in Blazor. We use for the demo purpose identity server demo, but you can change for your own authority scopes and something like that. In our management tool, you can see the features that applications are trying to use, dark mode, match score, the buy tickets, and also if these features are configured or not in the store. You can start to create a new product, default in this case. This is default product. And by default, the deployment is test, yes?
So one thing, for the people that doesn't know about the terminology of Esquio, a product is allowed to manage at multiples like software projects. You can, for example, have an CRM or an e-commerce, and you can add this product here in order to manage different features for different products. Okay, product is like a software project. Yep.
Yep. And inside the product, you can create new features, and also you can create new deployment. For example, in this case, we create a production deployment, okay, and save the change. Where is bad? Deployment, and also create the first feature is match score, and this is to show the match score on tiles. And enter in the feature, and we can activate these features for your different deployments. In this case, the app is using the attest deployment, and at this moment, we have here the match score for the finished match, and this is the first features that we have integrated with your application. And you can create toggles for these features. Toggle is, well, the conditions the conditions to activate or not these features. For example, I can use between dates toggle and select 10 May to 11 May and add this new toggle. And when I go to my application, the feature is not enabled because well, today is not 11, it's 12, okay?
This is really, so I've worked on some websites before for conferences, and we had things that changed the day the conference started and the day the conference ended and a week before the conference started and that sort of thing. So this looks really useful for that kind of thing.
Yeah, this is one of the typical scenarios of the feature flags is you deploy your code, but the code is not enabled. Mm-hmm. You cancel it when the code is enabled. Modify the toggle to 13 and save, and now the feature is also active. Well, I try to add a new feature, for example, dark mode. Dark mode, this is...
Every website has a dark mode.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Very important.
So dark
Very important.
Yes. And it's the same. I can enter in the feature, activate for my deployment, and I have here the dark mode for the application. In this case, I changed to add a new toggle like identity, and for example, only enable this toggle for John. And when I go to my application, John have this toggle enable, log out, log in for Unai, enter, but I don't have this. This is really interesting because you can select the identity name or the role that have the feature activated.
Yeah, one important thing here is stickiness is based in the username. So in Esquio, we are using a Jenkins hash function that guaranteed that the user get the same experience across different devices. So if you are entering in the web and you are going to an iPad or on a tablet, you are seeing this feature. And also we add some entropy, okay, to avoid that the user enter in the same bucket in different features.
Yeah.
Okay, by the name. Yep.
Partial rollout is the tool for do this. In this case, I can select for some. I can set, for example, 35% of people that have this tool enabled.
So what you're saying is it's partial. It decides who gets it, but it follows me around. It continues based on username.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's very confusing, right? If a feature works on one thing and not another.
Yeah. If you use your same username on different devices, it will have that stickiness that Luis was saying.
Yeah.
In this case, I enter with Unai. I don't have the feature enabled, but I change to, for example, 97%, and I hope the feature is enabled for me. And also, obviously, you can set different values for your different deployments. In your environment, development environment, or your test environment, you have the 97%, but in production you can modify to 0%, for example, and in this case you have, well, different configuration for your different environments in Esquio. Okay? Okay, the UI is also integrated with your security, with OpenID, with Identity Server, and you can create different users with different roles to, well, users that can create products, features, deployments, but you have also users for reader, users that can modify any parameters in the Esquio UI, in the management tool. Okay, this is I think this is a demo of Esquio.
Well, of course, we have seen when I was talking at the first thing that we think there is as a delivery mechanism of features. You have seen that user interface, so you can enable and disable them. But we also have a CLI, okay, a Esquio CLI, so you can toggle features and set parameter values and so on from any command line. But we also have an API, and we have GitHub Actions and Azure DevOps tasks, so you can integrate seamlessly all your feature toggling and so on with your delivery mechanism, with your deployments, your pipelines, and so on.
Okay.
So it's
yeah. The question is how this is integrated with ASP.NET Core or Blazor, because you can use Esquio for MVC, Blazor, Razor apps, but also for Blazor ones. The question is how this is integrated. And I think it's very simple. The first one is we have in the Endpoint Metadata convention, we have a new metadata. This is a required feature, and in this case, we are requiring for hidden gem feature. And when the feature is enabled, this endpoint is active. But if the feature is disabled, the endpoint is a not found. It's the most simple mechanism to integrate Esquio in ASP.NET Core apps. Okay?
Okay.
In this case, you can use Esquio UI to manage your configuration, but also we have the possibility to use the configuration mechanism of the ASP.NET Core to configure your products, features. In this case, in the app setting JSON, you can, well, configure the product default and the feature hidden gem in the state is enabled. When I start this application, when I start this app, it's here, The endpoint is hello world, a simple hello world, it's okay. But I can change the configuration of the feature and set false. And when I try to execute the same, in these cases are not found because the feature is not enabled, okay?
What's nice there, because it works with settings, then that could work with environment variables, that could work with my Azure app settings, etc., right?
Yes, you can use Azure App Configuration Service, the new service, to manage also these features.
Right.
We recommend the UI because you can have different products and a UI that manage all the configuration, but both cases as allowed.
Yeah, so also we have an schema. Okay, if you can see in the Visual Studio, we have published an schema in order to help you to type in this is the Esquio. So you can type in and you can give help about the Visual Studio in order to configure the JSON.
When I'm storing, what is the backend store for the Esquio configuration stuff? If I configure things in the UI.
Yeah. We have two stores at the moment. We have an store based on configurations, in ASP.NET configuration. So as you said before, you can use environment variables or a JSON file, YAML file, whatever is supported in ASP.NET Core configuration. But this is a good thing. But we prefer to use, for example, we have another store for Entity Framework Core. So you can store this information in a database in all the providers that Entity Framework Core supports.
Great.
Well, for MVC also we have some integrations. In this case, this attribute, the feature filter attribute. The idea here is, well, this action is only enabled when the feature hidden hand is enabled, but you can do things like that. You have two actions with the same name. The name is privacy for the two actions, and the feature filters in one of the actions. If the feature privacy feature is enabled, this is executed. But if it's disabled, this is executed. The idea of this is reduce the number of if-else in your code. This is more natural, and I think it's more readable than if-else in your code. And also, we have here is a new tag helper, is feature tag helper.
Yep.
It's very similar to the environment tag helper. And the idea is, well, this content is included only if the privacy feature is enabled or not. We have include property, exclude property, and also names. Okay, you can select if the content is removed, the content is added, depending on the state of the features.
Wow.
And I think the next one is Blazor. Javier is here, and Javier is one of the Blazor developers. And well, how integrate Esquio in Blazor? We have also a component for Blazor. In this case, the component is feature component. It's very similar to Tag Helper, and the name of the features. In this case, we have the content of the Blazor depending on the state of in this case, is the hidden hand. And we can do also the same if I start this up. I try to start this is the template of any Blazor, the default template for Blazor, and hidden hand is not enabled. I can see the content, but when I go to the settings on the server and set to true to the feature and go here, I can see the content of inside the component. Okay. It's very similar to the tag helper, but in this case, in Blazor wasn't. In this case, to integrate Esquio with Blazor apps, we have this extension point at SkillClient, and with this line, you can use feature component and create Blazor applications with feature components and feature flags enabled applications.
So this shows working with WebAssembly, and this would work with server-side Blazor as well?
Yes, also Blazor client and Blazor server, both.
Oh.
Yeah,
wow.
one nice thing that I don't know if everybody caught was that he was modifying the config on the server, and it was flowing all the way to the client.
Yeah, so that's just automatic. That's being sent through the SignalR.
No, this is a SkillClient. When you modify the settings, the SkillClient in Blazor ONEs is perform a request to get the configuration and evaluate the feature at runtime and enable or disable the content of the component.
So Unai, sorry, you can explain the difference, for example, with other platforms in feature toggle, because, for example, in other platforms like Launch Darly, the evaluation is on the server, and in Esquio is on the client. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the difference. In Esquio, we have a configuration to store the features and the toggles to use, but the evaluation if the feature is enabled or not is in your project. It's not in the server. Okay. When you use commercial products like Launch Darly or similar, the evaluation is on the server, it's not on the client. We do in the client, but because we can use your name, your identity name, your role, your browser, any condition of the client instead of evaluation on the server, and this allows to do more things.
Do I need to worry about scaling or performance because it's doing the client-side evaluation?
Well, in the demo, in this integration with Mini Profiler, you can see our times for evaluations. In this case, for example, match score is 0.4 milliseconds, and the dark mode with the partial rollout is 7.9 milliseconds. The performance of the Esquio is very cool.
Wow.
Because it's not the cost of the evaluation is not higher. It's checking your identity name, checking your role, or perform some partition function. But the times of the evaluation is nice. It's very nice.
So we had a question in chat on YouTube from Simon. He said, "Can I have a custom partition evaluation for a feature flag? Example, only a certain group of users."
Yes, Esquio is open source and is very extensible. We have some abstractions by default, like the partitioner. We use Jenkins partitioner, but you can re-implement this partition function and use your own partition function. But I think also if you need enable or disable features depending on the role, you have also the identity role toggle to select the role that have this feature enable or disable.
Right. Okay.
And also you have a claim toggle. So you can do the same. If you want, you can add your own claim because it's not role or whatever you want in the claims types. Right? You can add the claim time, add the claim values that you want to enable this feature.
Wow.
One more feature, and I think it's interesting. Well, when you create some app and use feature flags, the idea is to perform a canary release. For example, to roll out only to a percentage of user, and you need also to view if the new flow is good or not. If you are creating a e-commerce application and you change, for example, the flow to buy a product, and you use feature flags to move users to one flow or different flow, you need to see the results. We have an integration with Application Insights. This is here. This is an integration with Application Insights Processor. And the idea of Application Insights Processor is send to Application Insights the results of the evaluations of the different features. Okay, I can start in this app. And also in Visual Studio, I can see Application Insights Search. Well, and use my app, and I have here in this case the hidden hand feature, okay, with the result of true. We send the feature evaluation results to Application Insight with the request information. The idea of this, you can create different charts for the different requests, different operations, and show different values.
One important thing when we are talking also about feature flags and just more talking about the business part of it and not just the technical part, is to know how are your customers behaving when they are using the website, your application, or whatever. So if they have that dark mode enabled, are the users using it or are not users using it? If we are talking about an e-commerce, the users using dark mode are more propense to buy products from that catalog or something like that. So we'll build this so you can create your own charts with Application Insights and with Grafana or with other Power BI or any other tool you want to consume all these events.
So this integrates with Application Insights. Is it also possible to do, if I have like a different kind of logging thing, can I integrate it with logging?
Yeah, good question. I go here. Sorry. Probably you know .NET counters. .NET counters PS. .NET counters is a new tool in .NET Core to check the counters of the ASP.NET Core and of course your own counters. We have an integration with Esquio and .NET counters monitor Esquio. I think it's process ID in 4.8. In this case, when I use my app, I can see here the number of evaluations per second, the not found, your app is not well configured in the store, the not found, the throws, if any tool is throwing some exception, and also the time of the evaluation for the different features used in the app. We have also integration with Event Trace for Windows for checking the results, and if you go to the output, you can see here also the information about the evaluation of the Esquio. This is our logs to be integrated with the default ASP.NET Core logging system.
We had a question in chat if it can be used with Xamarin.
A good question. We have we have Xamarin in the roadmap, but we don't have at this moment time to do that. But it's possible and is in the roadmap to create the SkillClient for Xamarin.
And you could use it for APIs if your Xamarin app is calling into APIs. Of course, you could use it.
Yes.
Wow.
So we have to create the client, okay? Because you have the possibility to call the Esquio API in order to query about the features if are enabled or not.
What does that API look like? Do you have documentation or
Yep.
anything you can show on that?
John, at this point, you should like assume that they have it.
Yeah, that's a very good
Yeah,
point.
it's all the automations that we have for Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, and so on are based on the API.
Okay.
So
Wow.
here you have it.
You can integrate it with this. But Unai, you can show the map Esquio endpoint.
Yes.
That our library allows to the clients like SPAs like React, Angular, or vanilla JavaScript, or Xamarin can call in order to query the features?
Yeah, I start. The first question is about the HTTP Swagger docs. Here is the Swagger docs for our HTTP. Is a HTTP API that Esquio UI use. You have also integration with the authorization with your OpenID Connect server. And also we support API keys, okay? The idea with the API keys is to, well, the GitHub Actions, DevOps, and CLI use the API key instead of, well, OpenID authentication, okay? The Luis question is, I have an application for this, I think it's stop, and is, clear endpoint. Well, this is an ASP.NET Core app, and this is configured to use Esquio with the ASP.NET Core default services, and also the configuration store, in this case, the app settings JSON, okay? But we have also in the endpoints this map Esquio. Well, when you have a feature filter and the required feature, the evaluation of the feature is in the server side. But if you have a SPI application, or in this case Blazor or Xamarin, you can use our SkillClient endpoint and feature name, for example, hidden gem. You can use this endpoint to get the information about the features, okay? This is the endpoint that Blazor use to get the information about the features. And it's the same endpoint that you can use in Xamarin and SPA application with Angular, React, or something like that.
You can also ask for many features, Unai. You can add on another feature.
Oh.
Yeah, you can add for many features. In this case, I have only one, but you can have feature name, another feature, the results include all the features results. Okay.
Wow. All right, I'm looking to. So the latest comment was awesome. I'm not seeing a whole lot of questions. I'm trying to. Here's one. Jonathan asks, is there some form of auditing built in, or is that on the roadmap? So you showed logging and counters. Is there any other auditing level?
Yeah. So Unai, can you show the audit feature in the management UI in order to show all the changes that you are doing in products, features, and toggles, and so on?
Yeah. If you use the Skill UI, you have here the audit. This is the first one modification is create the product default with the description, and you have all the changes here. All the changes in this case, modify the parameter from the 11th day to the 13th date, and we have all the changes that you do in the store.
Oh. Yeah, it's really handy. So then if you needed, you could correlate that with some of the other logging, or say, hey, when we enabled this feature, we saw this rise in purchases or something.
Yeah, it's a good level out. Yep.
Trying to think of any other questions. Everything I ask, you're like, yeah, we have that.
I have a question. I have a question, and I promise I haven't asked this before. When you toggle the endpoints that are based on configuration, can you toggle them dynamically without restarting the app? So What we saw was that, like, you set the endpoint in config, and if the feature is not enabled, it returns 404.
Yeah.
If you change the config while the app is running, will it enable the endpoint without restarting the app?
Yeah. This is the same. This is the required feature. Okay.
Yeah.
We start this up. I stop it. I start this up. Well, when I go to my configuration, this is a snapshot configuration and can change on runtime. Well, what? I don't know if it changed the file. Is just, well, I don't know what is.
That's okay. Everything else worked great. So
I try another time.
I was curious more because I know how routing works, and I was thinking if you were actually modifying the endpoints at runtime.
Yeah. This is here hem and is hello world. Sorry.
Nice.
This is enable, but I change to false and save. I don't know, it's not working.
Maybe you need to refresh hard.
Yeah, probably. Other interesting feature is, well, behaviors. I have here is, well, we have options to configure some interesting things in Esquio. The first one is, well, what is the behavior when the feature is not configured in the store, in the UI or in the settings? In this case, you can configure the behavior is, if the feature is not configured, the state of the feature is enable or disable, okay, or disable. And the next one is, if you use custom toggles, because you can create your own toggles and you need only to implement a toggle interface and create your own toggles. If the toggle have some problem and throw some exceptions, also you can configure the behavior to set disable when the evaluation of the feature throw any exceptions. Also, we can change the endpoint fallback. The idea of the endpoint fallback is, in this case, if the feature is not enabled, okay, instead of return are not found, you can write your own fallback and redirect to some action, perform some code like this. In this case, is create your own middleware. You have all the possibilities to do that. I try to create a team on this. The settings is default, hidden hem. I'm starting this up. This is a non-existent feature. Well, instead of not found, we added the endpoint fallback. In this case, the response says hello world, the feature is disabled, and the endpoint fallback is executed. Okay, but we can change the behavior to set enable if the feature is not in the store. Go here. In this case, the feature is enabled, is not in the store, but the behavior is set enable, and well, the behavior is the regular.
Yep.
I had a question if the UI is available as a Docker container image.
Yes. We have in Docker Hub, I think is Shabaril coding, and we have Esquio UI. Okay, we have this image in Docker Hub, and you can use in Kubernetes, in your Docker, and all. We have the preview because this version of the Esquio is Esquio 3 and is in preview at this moment, but you have images.
You can show it. Show it in the tags, because I think that we published one.
Sorry?
Yeah. Click on the tags.
Click on the tags so people can see the versions.
Yeah, the latest is...
we have one preview that you can start using what you have seen with Blazor and so on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow.
And of course, this is an open source project.
Yeah.
You can download the code. You can go to the Esquio UI and you can modify all you need, the logos or colors. You can modify anything use in your company.
Yeah. So we have a contrib toggles, Unai?
Well, the idea is to create a contrib project to store the community toggles, not included by default in the UI. Well, I hope the community create different toggles and we can share these toggles for different people.
Yeah.
We have at this moment a lot of toggles, but you can create new ones and add to the UI without any problem. We have a lot of toggles for perform different, like the country of the client, the hostname, the environment variable, value, the speed on the core environment, the identity, dates, and we have a lot of the server IP browser. We have a lot of toggles to use by default.
Wow. So there was one question, but let me see if I can answer it well. There's a question of, can we group users? But I think you've kind of talked about before, and it's right on the screen here, there's identity role, and probably the simplest is to use the identity server roles for that, right?
Yes. Because you are using your claims identity. So if the roles are present in the identity, you are matching these roles with this toggle.
Okay.
So, and also if you can use the role by default, the name role, or I don't know, whatever you want. And also, if you want, I think that in GitHub we have an issue in order to use some claim type, okay? Because you can use the claim type and add the role and the values, okay, if you want.
How about SignalR? Is there anything with SignalR for using this?
I think it's the same as Xamarin.
In the roadmap.
Okay. But, I mean, the API is available, so I could call into the API from my SignalR application. It's just there isn't a client support.
Yeah, of course.
You could actually probably use it with SignalR too, because given that it uses endpoint routing, you can do map hub on SignalR and then say require feature. Yeah. And that means this hub is only enabled if you have this feature.
Yeah.
Javier, we can do a pull request if you want.
Yeah, there you go.
You are more than welcome, Javier.
Yeah.
The feature is done. It's called endpoint routing.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Wow, this is amazing. I can't think any other questions to ask because every question you're like, yeah, here it is. So
no, so we have in mind one thing that the feature toggle and other platform have. This is the multivariate, because as you saw in the demos, we're using an endpoint that only and returning true or false if the feature is enabled or not. But in a real life scenarios, you maybe want to return different things like a JSON, a number, a string. This is the multivariate thing that works with feature toggles that I think that we have to add in the next versions.
Yeah, and multivariate is the next big thing to do in Esquio. Yeah.
Okay.
The idea is, it's not only about Boolean, it's not only if, else. A feature can result also a number of a string, a different JavaScript, or a different number value to use in your code. It's not only about true or false.
It's like Would a good sample be something like if you want to like try different colors for your UI,
for example?
Yeah, for example.
So here's a question. If the UI is a separate microservice and a change is made in the UI, will other services pick up the change?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everything's pointing against that same UI endpoint, right? So,
Yes.
or same API endpoint.
Yes.
Yep.
The sample app using the Esquio HTTP is here. You can configure also a cache to reduce the number of requests performed to the server.
Yeah.
You can use here cache, and you can set true, and also you can set the number of seconds for this cache. In this case, 20 seconds.
Okay. I guess one other question I have, there's plenty of support, as you've shown, for counters and for logging. Is there, what about as I'm debugging the application? Do I run into any difficulties as I'm debugging, trying to understand which feature toggles are enabled or are not?
Yes, so I think for this you have all the login strategy that the Unai shows, because we are using the login by default. So you can enable a debug, for example, a debug login. You can obtain a lot of information about debugging information in order to troubleshoot in the problems that you have with some this. Or, for example, for MVC projects, you can use the mini profiler, for example, is another option if you are using it. If not, you have the logins and these kind of things that you have to troubleshooting problems in ASP.NET Core applications.
Right.
And also, all our packets are uploaded to Nugget using the source link, and you can use the feature of source link to debugging our code.
Okay. Very cool. Oh.
Unai, can you show the documentation, for example, for the people that want more about the UI? We have a documentation site.
Yes.
We have the link in the repo.
Yeah. I am sure that we need to improve our docs, but
docs always need to be improved.
Yeah. I agree, but this is the docs of Esquio, and here you can see the pull request process, but also some getting started with simple.NET Core or with the ASP.NET Core, of using the Azure DevOps task integrated with Esquio, getting started with monitoring and diagnostic Esquios, different tools, and you can see here the different parameters that you need to use, how to configure different tools. Well, I think it's good. I think will be improved, but well, I'm happy with it.
It's a great
documentation. It's a work in progress.
Docs are always a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is great. This is really exciting to see. I guess there were some questions on the chat, and I always like to wrap up with this anyways, is just if we can point people to all the, getting started information. So I think you've just pointed at the docs and then the GitHub repo as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or maybe by Twitter or some similar, we can contact with the Sabaril coding in Twitter.
Okay.
You can ask, whatever you want, and I'll try to ask as soon as possible. So
I've updated or I will update the community links thing that I put out, and I'll include those links as well. And they'll be in the show notes also. So I have two last closing questions. So, and one I looked up using Google Translate, but I have to ask you anyhow. Esquio comes from, or what is the meaning of that name? Is there anything deeper meaning there?
When we started creating projects in Xamarin, we need to select a name. Microsoft select some cities near to Redmond, and we select animals' names in Galician language. in Spain, we have a region, it's Galicia, and Galicia have a language, is Gallego.
Galician?
And we use the animal names. Chavaril is
Squirrel.
no, Chavaril is like,
Sabaril, no, it's a groundhog.
Oh,
yes,
Yeah.
and Esquio is squirrel.
oh, okay. So when I'm glad I asked then, because when I looked it up, Esquio, it said ski, to ski. So I would like to see a skiing squirrel as your mascot.
Yeah.
Okay,
Chavaril
wow.
is also the speed.NET Core health checks is also
Right.
a popular project that we have.
You know, we've talked about that before, but if there's anything new or anything more you'd like to show off on that, the health checks. Because I see you've got some continued updates on that.
Yes, of course. We have, I think we have 20 millions of downloads in NuGet for the health checks.
And what are some of the newer things that are most popular health checks that people are using?
The most popular is SQL Server. And the second one is RabbitMQ.
Oh, wow.
It's surprised for me, but when I see the list of the popular packets, SQL Server is the first one, and the second one is RabbitMQ, PostgreSQL, and Redis.
But I think that the first is the UI. Eh?
Okay, but the UI is not a health check.
Okay.
Right. But that do you have a picture of the UI in this repo?
For the health checks?
Yeah. Can you show that? Because if people haven't seen that, if you're not using health checks, you're missing out. And then if you are using health checks and you're not using this, you're also missing out. This is really a nice UI and system for health checks. Yes,
this is the UI for health checks, and the latest feature is the UI is also integrated with Kubernetes, with an operator in Kubernetes. You can deploy a new custom definition, and the UI is created, discover all the service in your namespace, and put all the information in the UI.
Wow.
This is a nice feature in the latest release of the UI.
Well, and so I couldn't help but notice in your bookmarks at the top too, you've also got Project Thai. So
yes, I know.
Is that also potentially then integrating in with Project? Well, I guess automatically Project Thai will work with Kubernetes.
Yes, I know Ryan. Ryan is an awesome developer. I know the project and I think it's very cool project.
Great. Wow. Well, I think this is a good spot to wrap up. So I'll include all these links and so if you can stop sharing your screen and we'll let you all wave goodbye as we fade out.
Okay.
All right. So thank you very much for your time and let us know as things update. We'll have you back on to show some more good stuff off.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you
It's a
so much,
pleasure
John.
to stay here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.